Okay, recording.
Okay, hello everyone, and this is August 1st, 2021 Global Technopolitics Forum's research team meeting, weekly meeting. So thank you everybody for being here on a Sunday morning. So I think the meeting started with a conversation with Puran. Would you like to continue that conversation, Greg?
As I said, Puran, I left some comments throughout the draft. I suppose my main comments would be two. One I mentioned last time, and that is, it still seems to me it doesn't quite have a clear driving question. What is it that you'd like to understand better when you finish the research than now? And second, you'd have some examples. You have Alaska and some maybe another one or two, but a few more examples of cases where something like a UBI-like arrangement has happened or worked. I think that would help me understand the domain better.
Certainly, Greg. I mean, I'll be very happy to add these two, issues, as you rightly mentioned. And that is why what I did in that revised note were the following three things. One, that we talked on the day one when we met about working theme, title, what could be, the best topic to consider. And therefore, I gave 5, 6 to sort of lay out a little bit more about what could perhaps be the one working theme or title. And then we can pick that up and we sort of begin to then, chisel it out. The second thing that I did in my revised note was, giving a little bit of more opening to UBI. And I talked about three things in particular, over and above what I had really talked about in my first draft. It was all about the economists have so far been able to look at UBI. Economists really, by evidence, have never ever been able to provide the full answer to the problem or to the theory. And therefore, it is all about theory and practice combining together. And therefore, a social science approach to UBI would be one thing which I think will probably work better than only deploying some modeling and some, economic theories in there. And the third thing that I proposed in my note is that once we sort of arrive, by and large, on what could be the working theme of the title, then I would really propose to do a fairly comprehensive, should I say, policy brief or issue brief. I mean, we can call it anything. And then I can really begin to write. That would be a pilot kind of a thing on the whole idea, the theme that we could probably pick up consensually. And then I sort of chisel it out and have all of you agree by it. And then that is put out in the public domain. And then we sort of figure out what are the kind of broad comments on merit. And then I sort of, make it, kind of a pre-final note, which I begin to then develop into a book, which can continue to be, critiqued and commented upon. And I feel that would be a better idea because UBI, Greg, as you rightly said on the day one, it has baggage. But it has baggage because economists have so far been able to look at the whole idea and the concept. So I think if that would be, and I'll be very happy to address those two issues, Greg, as you rightly said, and send you back another revised note. But what I have proposed are the following three things. One is that picking up one workable theme. Then I have added a few things saying that this is how we can go. And finally, I have proposed to, once we arrive at one working theme, then I will really like to write, maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 kind of a thing, which becomes the kind of a pre-summary on how the book is really going to develop. And we can then put it out in the public domain. It could be on the website, it could be elsewhere. We could even write to some experts on UBI and try and collate and collect all the relevant views and merit. And then we say, this is how we look like. And then I begin to write. And then we keep on, sort of improvising, improving, getting, critical comments and reviews. And, then the book begins to develop. This is what I have proposed by and large, and Greg.
That sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's at this point, it seems to me that it's more of exploratory kind of exercise. And then as it progresses, it finds more of a direction. Is that how you get it, Greg?
Yes.
Absolutely, Pari. Absolutely. And that is why I proposed to write a fairly, as I said, 4,000, 5,000 word, kind of a broad based approach to the problem, but only after we all agree on one working theme on the title. Because then it also gives me direction, because UBI, as Greg said on the day one, there's a lot inside, and not everything has been explored. So once we have one working theme, then I begin to develop, and that is put back into the public domain. And invite comments and everything, and then I firm it up more or less and begin to work on it. So that's the broad proposal which I have sort of given to the forum.
Good.
Paul, any comments?
No, I don't have anything specific, although it sounds like, once again, absent any further detail, but that it's a fairly broad topic. A lot has been written, and then the question about whether it's really, how much is actually implementable. But I mean, I think put on at the end of what you were just saying, there are some areas that haven't been looked at too carefully. So within that, I'm wondering if maybe, that would be a way to go, is to look at, one or two of those areas that you were just referring to, and really focus a lot on that. Once again, I'm speaking a little bit out of school, because I'm not sure exactly what those areas are, but I mean something a little bit more defined or concrete that would give it some structure.
Yeah.
So certainly, Paul, and there are 3-4 things which have not really been captured or covered by the work on UBI so far. The one has been the social security angle or approach within UBI construct has not really been examined. The second thing which has not been examined is that how could that really have a lot of implications on governance structures of different countries. Because if people go without food, and this pandemic has given a lot of, what should I say, food for thought for those who have been working on UBI. Even the World Bank, IMF, they've all said that we will really need to reach out to the governments, asking them to work out some kind of a new social welfare compact, which would be a different kind of a social welfare schemes, which governments have so far been able to put in place and trying to see to it if they can really work for the people. And then this whole technology issue, because the moment we look at technology is really going to play out in every part of life as we go along. So how will really technology either help or not help, or create more employment, or lead to more job losses? What will really happen when technology really gets into the skin of each one of us at home, outside? So what could be the kind of cost and consequence, both on people and their employment, and also on the labor market? So these are some of the areas which have not been deeply explored by many of the economists. And I have been able to go into some reading, which has been fairly comprehensive. I won't say I have read everything on UBI, but I feel that these are some of the issues in the areas which might really help us go a little deeper into UBI and try and figure out how can partnership, how can technology, how can governments and private sector, how can institutions robustness, how can anti-corruption issues could be addressed through UBI, because then the governments will not have discretion in terms of what they want to do for their own people, because you then have fixed program, fixed plans, and people know what they will be getting and how will they really be getting it. So I think those are the broad areas which we can really try and go deeper and begin to sort of figure out what can really be done to plug those gaps. And then we could probably theorize, and because there is no theory around UBI, where people have just been writing about it. There's no theory so far. Can we therefore with this work try and talk about social security and digital era? How could governments and the private sector sort of collaborate together? How could systems be improved and applied to the well-being of the people? So those are the kind of broad areas, Paul, you rightly said so. But I think these are 3-4 areas which I'll be very happy to sort of dig deeper and try and figure out what really lies. And then we can take the best thread out of it and begin to deal more deeply with more comprehension and using the social science approach. Economic theories have failed to sort of do justice to UBI and what has really been written about UBI so far by the economists.
So, yeah. Right. Yeah, Paul, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. I just, thanks, Puran, for sketching out those different areas. I'm just wondering whether there might be actually enough in just one of those areas. In other words, if you looked at the technology part, for example, which just on surface sounds like it's got a lot of potential to it and a high probability of saying some novel things because of the way the technology is evolving. I wonder if that might be the area to really drill down and focus on. And talk about how, for example, artificial intelligence or things related to artificial might have some bearing on UBI. I mean, I don't know the literature at all, but I'm guessing that maybe not many people have sort of thought about that connection. And then the other question maybe would be, are there already some programs in place that aren't related to UBI but have a similar feel or structure to them? So I think about work that's going on now to develop a global corporate taxation system, right? So this is something that's being negotiated now among a lot of countries around the world to have one sort of so that to avoid this issue of countries that are undercutting and attracting a lot of firms to their countries, Ireland being an example. There are a number of others like that. Not that it's the same sort of thing, but I mean, it's a similar sort of issue about how do you get a universal program like that that's global in nature? What has to be done to make that happen? And then I also think about, in India. So India has been very focused, as you know, of course, better than I do, about providing banking to as large a swath of the population as possible. So there's a whole digitalization drive, and it seems, at least from an outside perspective, that that's actually been quite effective or quite successful. So I'm wondering if there's anything there that gives any insight or would be any sort of framework for sort of the area that you're talking about. Obviously on a very different scale, but maybe there's some things there that could be teased out or referenced, that might give some structure to what you're thinking related to UBI.
Certainly, Paul. I mean, you rightly said, and that is why I think rather than really talking in terms of quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and so on and so on forth, it'll be a very good idea to look at UBI from the overall perspective of digital age or digital era, or something of that kind, where we could really have a greater depth to play with the tool or the instrument that we have, and also in terms of what we are trying to explore. So this is the one thing that I propose in response to what is said. The second thing you so well said that, this UBI, how could that be made more universal globally? Of course, there are many countries around the world, both in the global south and the global north, which have been putting UBI into, operations to sort of see to it as to how those countries would like to really remove or alleviate, extreme poverty. This is what Chinese have done. And China is on record having said that they have been able to take care of extreme poverty. And they have really put in place UBI to its fullest, strength. And so UBI in India, for example, we have had some 9, 10 years back, a scheme where government said, and they also tried to do it, that the government in India will provide 180 days, worth of employment to every employable, youth, giving them, money which could probably be extra non-agricultural income. And because agriculture is, subject to a lot of vagaries of nature, it rains, it doesn't rain, people can't, so it was a supplementary income which was sort of given by the Indian government to the people who were willing and who were eligible to work for a minimum of 180 days. In 2019, when we had the last elections, I had some work for one of the political parties, and I will really send you the link. That whole idea was developed by me and Abhijit Banerjee, which was on Nyaya, which was, how do a particular government, if it comes to, if that political party comes to the power, how will it really create a new sort of, ideas which would be nothing but universal basic income. So I'll be very happy to, send that link down to all of you to have a look at it. You rightly said that how do different countries around the world would probably look at UBI. And we now know that carbon tax is being considered. So if carbon tax could be the tax which different borders could probably consider thinking in terms of how, the free flow of goods and services is really going to take place, I think UBI, in some sort of longest logical framework could also be considered to fit in. And that would be really another thing which I think can be, considered and explored in addition to putting focus on IT and AI and so on and so on forth, and also trying to see to it as to how can governments universally at the global level try and see to it from the point of view of seeing that how the UBI could probably have a bearing on alleviating extreme poverty, and also trying to see to it that income inequality in digital era could be, sort of narrowed down, if not really completely taken away.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Any comments? I like your comment, Greg, on chat, that reimagining universal basic income for digital age. But I think on that we close it, and maybe Daniel wants to talk about his project. Daniel.
Yeah, so I just sent in a review I did on Department of Homeland Security, TSA, with advisement from CISA, put forth these two like regulatory directives for our critical pipeline companies. One was like May 27th was the first one, and that was following the like Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack. Then they put a second one out July 20th. So I did a review of both of those and kind of the implications of them. I think they're both a step in the right direction because it's the government placing some regulation on these technically private industries. And then I kind of make some commentary towards what I think more they can do in the future. And then overall project wise, I know I mentioned zero trust being an interest. I've definitely read a lot about it, but it's just really broad. And even though I'm interested in a more specific section of it, I think there's so much literature on it right now. It's kind of like a diluted topic to write about. And at the same time, I have this other interest in like the intersection of cybersecurity and spatial sciences. And for some of the classwork I'm doing for my master's degree right now, my capstone is kind of based on that intersection. And in the past, it's benefited me for this to kind of work on topics like my schoolwork be similar to the work I'm doing like for this and have that intersection, because then I can kind of like have one topic and have similar information that can go to two different sources. So I think that's going to be something that I kind of focus on like long-term project wise, is some sort of paper that introduces, because I just think there's a lot of applicability of spatial sciences to the cybersecurity field. I think that's going to really be a big focus of mine, at least for the next year.
Personally, I think that you should keep focusing on security and then look at different things. But I think that should be the main theme of your work, because you already do so much on it. And whenever you want, I think it will be good as things progress, we keep an update on your white paper. So time to time, when you think that there is an area to add, I think we should treat it as a living project and update it, because it's important and it's good white paper to keep it live. Greg, any comments?
No, that sounds right to me. And I think over time, as you say, Dan, the spatial sciences, the spatial piece of this is going to be interesting. So that's great. It's all to the good, it seems to me. And it's surely in our interest to have you bring your academic work closer to your forum work as well.
Great, thank you.
So I haven't read your article. I would look at it and probably we will publish it like the other ones.
I haven't seen it either, so I'll read it today.
Yeah. Any comment from anybody? Okay, Paul, is there anything you want to discuss about anything?
Nothing particular. I think we sort of addressed it the last time about the next steps for the campaign and some of the work around the Google AdWords and Google programs. So anyway, nothing further to add based on following that.
Yeah, I think we will, on that note, we wait a bit, another maybe week or two. Already a lot of interest has been generated in terms of clicks, but nothing major has happened. So we'll wait and see how it goes. Okay, Greg, is there anything you want to mention?
No, I don't think so. I have a piece coming out this week in the LA Times on sanctions, but rather different. So.
Okay, could you please tweet about it so we will have it on our website?
I will when it comes out. Yeah, they've said exactly what day, but it'll be a couple days.
All right, thank you very much. Well, on that note, then, thank you everybody for being here, and I wish you a wonderful week ahead, and I see you next week.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Good week.
Bye-bye.
Good week. Bye.